देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवतिरुत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। शृण्वतां स्वकृतकृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदयन्तस्थो हि भद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सताम्. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1, Text 20 and 21. Shri Sukha. Hare Krishna. Shri Sukha Uvacha Iti Samabhihito Mahabhagavato Bhagavatas Tribhuvana Gurur Anushasanam Atmano Lagutaya Vanata Shirodharo Bhadamiti Subahumanam Uvaha. Shri Sukha Uvacha Iti Samabhihito Mahabhagavato Bhagavatas Tribhuvano Gurur Anushasanam Atmano Lagutaya Vanata Shirodharo Badamiti Subahumanam Uvaha. Shri Sukha Uvacha Iti Samabhihito Mahabhagavato Bhagavatas Tribhuvana Gurur Anushasanam Atmano Lagutayan Vanata Shirodhara Bhadamiti Subahumanam Uvaha. Synonyms. Shri Sukha Uvacha. Shri Sukadeva Goswami said, Iti, thus, Samabhihitaha, completely instructed, Mahabhagavataha, the great devotee, Bhagavata, the most powerful Lord Brahma, Tribhuvana, of the three worlds, Guru, the spiritual master, Anushasanam, the order, Atmanaha, of himself, Lagutaya, because of inferiority, Avanata, bowed down, Shirodhara, his head, Badam, yes sir, Iti, thus, Sabahu Manam, with great respect, Uvaha, carried out. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued, after thus being fully instructed by Lord Brahma, who is the spiritual master of the three worlds, Priyavrata, his own position being inferior, offered obeisances, accepted the order, and carried it out with great respect. Purport. Sri Priyavrata was the grandson of Lord Brahma. Therefore, according to social etiquette, his position was inferior. It is the duty of the inferior to carry out the order of the superior with great respect. Priyavrata therefore immediately said, Yes, sir, I shall carry out your order. Priyavrata is described as Mahabhagavata, a great devotee. The duty of a great devotee is to carry out the order of spiritual master or the spiritual master of the spiritual master in the parampara system. As described in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam parampara praptam. One has to receive instructions of the Supreme Lord through the disciplic chain of spiritual masters. A devotee of the Lord always considers himself a servant of the Lord. Text 21. Bhagavan api manuna yatavad उपकल्पिता पिचितः प्रियव्रत नारदयोर् अभिशमम् अभिशमीक्ष्ममानयोरात्मसम् अवस्थानम् अवान्मनसं क्षयम् अव्यावहृतं प्रियव्रतानम् आगमत् भगवान् अपि मनुना यतावद् उपकल्पिता पचितः प्रियव्रत नारदयोरभिशमम् समीक्षमानयोरात्मसम् अवस्थानम् अवान्मनसं क्षयम् अव्यावहृतं व्रतनम् अगमत् भगवान् अपि मनुना यतावद् उपकल्पितापचितः प्रियव्रत नारदयोरभिशमम् अभिसमीक्षमानयोरात्मसम् अवस्थानम् अवान्मनसं क्षयम् अव्यवहृतं प्रियव्रतम् अगमत्. Synonyms. Bhagavan, the most powerful Lord Brahma, Api also, Manuna, by Manu, Yatavat, as deserved, Upakalpita Apichitaha, being worshipped, Priyavrata Naradeyoho, in the presence of Priyavrata and Narada, Abhishamam, without aversion, Abhisamiksha Manayoho, looking on, Atmasam, just suitable for his position, Avasthanam, to his abode, Avak Manasam, beyond the description of mind and words, Kshayam, the planet, Avyavahritam, extraordinarily situated, Priyavratan, departing, Agamat, returned. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Lord Brahma was then worshipped by Manu, who respectfully satisfied him as well as he could. Priyavrata and Narada also looked upon Brahma with no tinges of resentment. Having engaged Priyavrata in accepting his father's request, Lord Brahma returned to his abode Satyaloka, which is indescribable by endeavor of mundane mind or words. Purport. Manu was certainly very satisfied that Lord Brahma had persuaded his son Priyavrata to take the responsibility for ruling the world. Priyavrata and Narada were also very satisfied, although Brahma had forced Priyavrata to accept the management of worldly affairs, thus breaking his vow to remain a brahmachari and completely engage in devotional service. Narada, Priyavrata did not look upon Brahma with resentment. Narada was not at all sorry that he had been frustrated in making Priyavrata a disciple. Both Priyavrata and Narada were exalted personalities who knew how to respect Lord Brahma. Therefore, instead of looking upon Brahma with resentment, they very feelingly offered him their respect. Lord Brahma then returned to his celestial abode known as Satyaloka, which is described here as being impeccable and being unapproachable by words. It is stated in the universe that Lord Brahma returned to his residence, which is as important as his own personality. Lord Brahma is the creator of this universe and most exalted personality within it. His lifetime is described in Bhagavad Gita 8:17. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yat Brahmano Viduhu. The total duration of the four yugas is 4.3 million years, and when this is multiplied by 1,000 times, it equals 12 hours in the life of Brahma. Therefore, we cannot factually comprehend even 12 hours of Brahma's life, to say nothing of 100 years that constitute his entire lifetime. How then can we understand his abode? The Vedic literature describes that in Satyaloka there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. In other words, since Satyaloka is situated next to Brahmaloka or the Brahman effulgence, it is almost as good as Vaikuntha Lord Brahma's abode is practically indescribable from our present status. Therefore, it has been described as Avan Manasa Gochara, or beyond description of our mind and of our words and imagination of our minds. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.2.26 to 27 thus describes the abode of Lord Brahma. Yadvai paradhyam tadu parameshtyam na yatra shoko na jhara na mrityu na ratir na chodvegaha. In Satyaloka, which is situated many millions and billions of years away, there is no lamentation, nor is there old age, death, anxiety, or influence of the enemies. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Budri Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Prachani Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshta Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare. I humbly bow down to all the simple Vaishnavas. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to purify myself. I would take a minute to wish everybody happy Shivaratri. So today we are in fifth canto, first chapter, text 20 and text 21. So in terms of the context, so here we see the Lord Brahma has instructed Priyavrata, and the way Priyavrata has actually responded to Lord Brahma's instruction is the core theme. And so, in terms of the bigger picture, it all comes in when Parikshit Maharaj asked this big question: how could Priyavrata, who is an advanced bhakta trained in brahmacharya, how could he enter into household life, taking care of the government, which normally binds one to karma? Then Sukadeva Goswami explains that Narada instructed Priyavrata towards renunciation. So Priyavrata was actually given the self-knowledge, and he was taking the vow of brahmacharya. But Swayambhuva Manu, who wanted to rule, who wanted his progeny so that the proper dharmic rule can be established. So he wanted Priyavrata to rule, and Lord Brahma is described as Tribhuvana Guru, which is very interesting, right? So Brahma is also one of he's called a perceptor. A perceptor is a person who's a guru, and he's Tribhuvana Guru, which is all the three worlds. He's considered guru. So we might wonder what three worlds, because if you think about the description that Bhagavatam gives for the universe, it's actually called Antakataha, or egg shaped. So it has like 14 planetary systems. So there are lower planetary system, middle planetary system, and then higher planetary system. So in terms of the seven planetary systems. So we are in the Bhuloka. There is Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Maha, Janaha, Tapaha. Tapaha is and Satyam. Satyam is the highest, which is Lord Brahma's abode, which is the top seven. And then there is Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Taratala, Patala. There is seven below as well. So these all the three worlds is Lord Brahma is considered Tribhuvana Guru. He's considered to be the perceptor of the three worlds, and he personally ordered Priyavrata to actually go and take to the principles of governance. And he said, "Stay sheltered." So we saw in the 19th verse. It's a very wonderful verse, the 19th verse, where Lord Brahma instructed the Priyavrata to go take shelter at Lord Lotus feet and conquer the senses and execute the duty as per the Lord's order. So that was the context. So the instruction was to Priyavrata to not to take this vow of celibacy, but rather get involved in the process of governance so that there is dharmic order which is established. So this we have seen in a couple of other instances as well. One thing which comes to my mind is the Prachetas, right? So the Prachetas were sent by Prachina Barhi to go and meditate. And they went, they got Lord Shiva as their spiritual master. And then Lord Shiva instructed them this Rudra Gita prayers. Then they went to the ocean, and then underneath the ocean, they meditated for like 10 thousands of years. And then eventually they saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. And at the end of it, when the Supreme Personality of God gave them the benediction, he said that they will all go rule. They will take the leadership of the people, and then at the end of their lives, they will be given the right knowledge through which they can come back to the Lord. And as instructed, Narada Muni came and he instructed them about the Atma Vidya towards the end of their life. Once they were done with their worldly duties, and then they went back home, back to Godhead. So this is typical, and here, so there are a lot of points we'll discuss here. So in the first verse, which is 5:120, Priyavrata was fully instructed by Lord Brahma, and here the Priyavrata bowed down in humility, accepted Brahma's order, and carried it out with great respect. So the top points from Srila Prabhupada's purport here. One is the humility and obedience are the ornaments. So we talk about Bhakti Bhushanam. So the two ornaments being talked about here is humility and obedience. So Priyavrata considered himself inferior by etiquette and immediately accepted Brahma's superior order, right? So, and then the second point would be how a Mahabhagavata, he always follows parampara. So Sri Prabhupada talks about how the devotee's duty is to carry out the order of the spiritual master and the spiritual master of the spiritual master. So in the parampara system, so the devotee is to carry out the and so that's why it said so the words of the spiritual master are the life and soul for the devotee. And then parampara is considered the topmost, right? Evam parampara praptam imam rajarishayo viduhu. So an act on the instructions of the Lord, and this has to be done through disciplic succession. So whenever, so this is very important and very what do you call germane to the point where everybody is thinking about like how we modernize certain things, right? But here the very important instruction is to receive and act on the Lord's instructions through disciplic succession. So it has to come from disciplic succession and not made whimsically. And then identity of a devotee is that of servant of a servant and in the mood of service and not egoistic. So here we can think about and that has completely written off all the worldly want to do anything in this world, but then instructed by his grandfather, Lord Brahma, he's now he's being made to actually take care of the world duties, right? So there are a lot of things we can think about this, and so one came to my mind is the verse from Bhagavad 11. So where Uddhava is actually asking Lord Krishna, like what.
It looks like we lost. Oh, is that how is it? Prabhu, are you on the mute?
Hare Krishna.
We can hear you, Prabhu.
I don't know, Prabhu. I got muted. I didn't do anything, so I'm not sure. So Acharyan mam bijaniyam navamanyeta karhichit namartya buddhayashveta sarvadeva mayo guruhu. So he says one should know that the Acharya is none other than Krishna himself, and never disrespect the Acharya, and one should never envy him and thinking him as an ordinary man. And the Acharya is considered the representative of all three gods. He says sarvadeva mayo guruhu. An Acharya is considered as a person who is representing devatas. So that's the highest position which Krishna regards acharyas with. So hence here Priyavrata is giving us the examples, all these examples in Bhagavad telling us how to lead devotional life. So Priyavrata is saying that if acharya says something, then it is for the good and take it implicitly. That's the core message here: obedience to the Guru Parampara, and then act in this world. But sheltered in the Lord's lotus feet. So we saw in
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, we
Hare
can't
Krishna,
hear.
Prabhu. Are you
Prabhu,
able to hear
somehow
now?
now, yes,
I don't
Prabhu,
know
somehow
what's
you are
going.
is going to mute. So I don't know.
I don't know. Sorry about that. So he says, Samashrita ye pada pallava plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murarehe bhavam buddhim vatsapadam padam padam yat padam natesham. It says one has to take shelter on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Then the samsara sagara, which is this material ocean, becomes like a vatsapadam. Vatsapadam is like the footprint of the calf. So typically you see that when the calves walk, it's like there is small hoop footprints you see on the mud. And when water fills into this, it's very easy. One can easily cross over that footprint. That's how when one takes shelter on the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, even if one is in the midst of material duties and material obligations, then just by having taken shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, then one can able to cross over. So we've heard this verse, but what does it mean to take shelter of the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, right? So that is exemplified by Priyavrata here. There's only one way to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is to follow the instructions of the Guru and be connected to the Guru Parampara. So that's the core message here. And then one other important point is the maturity of a Vaishnava. So even though it is antithetical to what Priyavrata wanted to do, where he wanted to be a brahmachari and take this vow of celibacy, but being instructed by Brahma in the other direction, where to go and get involved in the material world, he didn't have any envy or resentment towards Brahma, but rather, we see in the text 21 that he bowed down his head and he said, Badam iti. Badam iti means, yes, sir. He said, I'm going to follow whatever you said. So that's the mood with which a Vaishnava approaches. So that's a very important point. So just to summarize, we talked about sorry about the interruptions in the middle. We saw about the importance of obedience to Guru Parampara, where Priyavrata exemplifies how one should, even if it is not in line with what he thinks, but if it comes from the Guru Parampara and from a very authoritative source, then it has to be followed. And then how, even though if one is working in this material world, if he is sheltered into the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then one can be protected. And the third is the quality of Vaishnava, where he shows that humility and obedience is his ornaments, and not envy the instructions or disrespect the instructions of a spiritual master. So those are some of the points I could gather on this. We can talk about this for